All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to the kickoff of the Acute Syndrome Foundation Meaningful Change series. My name is Casey Craig. You may know me as the SCN8A mom to Stella, but I recently took on the role of the official Acute Syndrome Foundation moderator and social emotional program director. I am so excited to be here with you once again, and I think that you will find that the Meaningful Change series will be as informational and enjoyable as the Clinical Trial Readiness series this past fall. Our lead sponsor, Praxis Precision Medicines, is here with us today to discuss their SCN8A program, Prax 562, and to talk about the upcoming program with Citizen and how it will help them enable their clinical trial for our community. Citizen is a new kind of natural history study that not only helps enable research, but it also is a fantastic tool for patients because it securely pulls the entire electronic medical history of patients using a high quality data from existing medical records instead of relying only on information provided by caregivers. It also takes just a few minutes to sign up. They do all the hard work for us. I don't know about you, but I'm wondering how the heck I can get a ticket on this train. Well, let me tell you. Tomorrow, April 1st, I know this is no April Fool's joke, we will kick off the Citizen campaign to help fill the 50 registration spots available to our community. The link to sign up will be posted. Sorry about that. Will be posted tomorrow morning in the SCN8A Family Support Group Facebook page. So how can you prepare yourself to grab one of those 50 spots? It's easy. You will need to gather 4 important pieces of information and/or documents before tomorrow morning. So here's your homework. 1, you need to get a list of institutions where your child has been seen. Number 2, your child's genetic reports. 3, your driver's license. And lastly, your child's birth certificate. Wow, guys, this is such amazing news for our community. I don't know about you, but I'm super excited to hear more from our friends at Praxis today. Before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items. Number 1, group interaction through questions and/or comments will take place in the chat box only. The chat box is to your right, and it allows you to type questions and/or responses for Hillary or any of our guests from Praxis. To your left, there's a tab titled Expo. In this area, you will find troubleshooting if you are experiencing technical issues, or you may type a request for help in the chat box. The jack of all trades, Shelley Frappier, will tackle any technical issues you might have today. Now, I would like to introduce our very own Hillary Savoy. She is the founder and director of the Acute Syndrome Foundation and is one of our community's biggest cheerleaders. Over the last couple of months, I've had the pleasure of seeing how things work from a volunteer's point of view, and I can't stress enough to you how hard Hillary works for our children. Day in and day out, she is fighting for each and every one of them. She's a rock star mom, fellow parent, and leader. Without further ado, Ms. Hillary Savoy. And it might just take a few minutes for us to pop on here.
I'm coming.
Here she is.
Can you hear me okay?
I don't know if I can hear you quite yet.
How's now? No?
Let's see.
Oh,
Shelley can?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, thank you, Casey. I think Casey always tries to see if she can get me teary before we start these programs. So thank you, Casey. And welcome everyone again to our sort of unofficial kickoff for our Meaningful Change series, in which we are going to be having conversations about the ways in which the knowledge found within our SCN8A community can be leveraged to better support all of our children. We are a very, very active community with a history of engaging deeply among ourselves, as well as with the medical research and drug development communities. We want to dig deeper into the ways that we do this and how we can continue to do so in more meaningful and measurable ways. So to kick off this series, we've invited our lead sponsors on the series, Praxis Precision Medicines, to answer our questions about their SCN8A program, which is called Prax 562, as well as to help us understand how our engaging with them has helped and will continue to help support their programs, including through the campaign that Casey just spoke about, which we'll be launching tomorrow with Citizen. in which we will literally use existing data derived from your child to help drive research and drug development. With that, I would like to invite our guests from Praxis to come on screen to press that little share audio and video button. It takes a minute for folks to get here, so you guys take your time while I introduce you. We have up Marcio Sousa, who is the CEO of Praxis Precision Medicines and has been with our community in the gathering in December. Right. So he is a familiar face. And Bernard Ravina, who is the CMO at Praxis, who has been on the CTR series that we held in the fall and is also a familiar face. We have Michael Oldham, who is new to our community, is the clinical lead for SCN8A. Billy Motel, who is also new to our community at Praxis, is the regulatory lead for SCN8A. And Devra Densmore, who's the advocacy lead for SCN8A and also is a new face for everyone. Oh, and Shelly's popping on.
I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah, and Shelly will be sharing some slides for us. Okay, so we're just waiting for Michael to come over. Thank you. Okay. So welcome all of you, and it's really nice to see you again, Marcio, Bernard, Michael, and Devra, and lovely to get to finally meet you, Billy. Oh, and there's Michael. Great. Hi, Michael. And just so you guys know, you can click on any of the pictures to make them larger or smaller. So we don't have the, if you want to look at anybody's face up close, you can do that, or look at the slides more closely as we dive into them. So as all of you know here, families and guests, we like to keep things pretty casual and conversational at the Cute Syndrome. And we like to drive things really based on our community's questions, concerns, and ideas. So we are going to have the Praxis team do a quick introduction on their team and their program. And then families, we are going to dig into the discussions around questions that you all submitted to Praxis through our support group. And as always, we encourage active live involvement. I like it when you guys interrupt and ask questions and drive the conversation in the directions that you need to. So again, as Casey said, ask your questions in the chat, and then there will be a Q&A at the end. So really, our partners here from Praxis are here to answer what's on your mind and bring forward those lessons that they have for us and we have to share with them. We're in this space human-sized, exactly, in conversation, trying to ensure that we do the best for this community. So, but also just to note, please remember that our panelists may not be able to answer all of your questions. This may be that they don't have the answers yet, or they can't share details of current programs. And this is part of ongoing and open conversation. And a conversation we've been having really since Praxis was a handful of people. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to the Praxis team. You guys can direct Shelly through your slides, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and the program.
Great, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Wonderful. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much again, Hillary, for having us today. We're really excited to join everyone with the Cute Syndrome Foundation. And we recognize that you're taking time out of a very busy life to spend it with us today, and we really appreciate that. For those who aren't as familiar with Praxis, we are a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company who are translating genetic insights into development of therapies for patients affected by central nervous system disorders. And this includes rare epilepsies. And we're a group of neurologists, geneticists, scientists, but really people who are really passionate about understanding these kinds of gene mutations and ways that we can better understand them. And like the parents on the line right now, many of us are parents, and we're all fighting to give our children and every child the most fulfilling existence we can. So one of the things we really wanted to share with you today is Praxis isn't just a logo. It's a company full of people who are really passionate. And we'll share a little bit more about that passion individually. And if you don't mind going to the next slide, you'll see the same folks on the line today in this slide, but we'll give a bit of an introduction so that you get to know us a little bit better and the work that we're focused on. So Marcio, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Deborah and Hillary and the entire team and the families present here today. It's always an honor for me to be able to have these conversations, and consider it a privilege to be able to be here today. We talked last time couple months ago, right, Hillary? I just, like, time is such weird these days with COVID and so on. Hopefully soon to be over. But I very much enjoy that, and I'm sure today is going to be the same. I currently lead the team here at Praxis, and I would say currently, not because anything is going to happen in the future, not that I know at least, but meaning the way we do it is really at all hands. So each one of us here should be able to speak and to exemplify the love we have for this community and for what we do individually. More a little bit on my personal background. I think last time we talked about my professional background. Once I started in rare disease, a little bit over 15 years ago at Genzyme, I met my wife there. We had our first kids, and as life goes, I have a kid that has a special brain development condition as well. So life hit me on the love for rare disease in many ways. In that case, Felipe is doing fairly well. So I'm not going to pretend, as I always say, that I know what each one of you go every day, but I do have a glimpse of what it is to be worried and to care about better treatments being available and so on. And I tend to believe that brings me and the rest of my family extra energy to develop drugs for the patients out there, which is fundamentally what we do at Praxis. So just wanted to give that intro. I'm sure we're going to be talking more in a couple of minutes, but and I'll hand over to Bernard.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Bernard Ravina. I'm a neurologist and chief medical officer at Praxis. I've had the opportunity to talk with this community before. Hillary and I were just reminded it was back in December. Feels like a million years ago, actually, with everything that's transpired. But appreciate the opportunity to talk with you again and share some of the progress we've made on the program and how we're thinking about the program going forward, and how we can continue to collaborate to bring this particular drug, Prax 562, to patients and maximize potential benefit to everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Billy Motel. I'm the strategy lead for the rare disease programs. Like Marcio, I've been doing exclusively rare disease work for about 10 years now. And, you know, it's also personal for me. I had an aunt who had an undiagnosed Prader-Willi syndrome for most of her life. And I watched her, you know, exist without even knowing what her condition was. So, you know, this is extremely fortunate for me that I get to interact with you guys and understand your experience. I'm really happy to be here today.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Oldham. I, you know, echo that. You know, it's really great to be able to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you all. You know, my background is as a child neurologist and pediatric epileptologist, and you know, focused when in clinical practice on genetic epilepsies and also neonatal neurology, and you know, remember all too well how difficult it was to have no options, and you know, the conversations with families can be you know, really hard in that respect. And so being able to learn from you all, work on these projects to bring new opportunities forward is just incredibly rewarding. And so thank you all for having us join today.
And I'm Deborah Densmore. I realized at the very beginning I didn't even introduce myself. I was just so excited to jump right in. But I'm the advocacy lead in rare diseases, and I have the pleasure of getting to work very closely with Hillary and so many other advocates in this space who give voice to the things that are on your minds. And I'm really excited to be so welcomed into the SCN8A community to really learn about what your experiences are and to help make sure that each one of these other passionate individuals on the phone better appreciates what it's like to live with this condition and how we can really work together to help tackle this big and complex issue. So I really appreciate everything that you've shared so far, and I'm very excited to continue working with you. Next slide, please.
All right, I think I'm gonna take it from here, a couple of slides. Try to keep this very informal, Hillary, as you mentioned at the beginning. I think the important part as well is on the Q&A. But I thought it was important for you all to read our mission here as a company. Something quite meaningful. We really care about every word here. There are a couple of the ones that are in bold that I wanted to make sure we highlight. So one is CNS in general, drug development has the second lowest probability of success from an idea to getting to a patient. And it gets a little bit better on the later stage, but the early stage is, and part of that is how deliberate it is, the investments and so on. But part of that is not really driving those decisions and making sure that the development happens. So what it wants to do as a company is to develop drugs that are obviously expected to be and are effective and safe to patients. But considering that time is the best time to have a drug development for SCN8A is several years ago. The second best time is today. And it wants to make sure that we honor that and that we develop as fast as possible. But quite importantly is hopefully in the near future, going to be able to help this community and hopefully other companies as well. They're going to be more and more. So to do this again and again as a company is something that we are very passionate about and we want to continue to deliver on CNS. It's incredible unmet needs. And again, we're all very passionate about that as I'm sure it came across on the introductions. So next slide, please. In order to do that, there's a lot of things that have been talked about in the world about how the way companies work sometimes is more important even than what they are working on. And I'm a big subscriber to that. And I think we all are at Praxis. We believe we are on the right side of science, but science alone does not get drugs developed and into the patient's hands and bodies. So we've drive the company by 4 basic principles on pretty much everything we do. So the foundational one is trust. And that goes beyond what we say trust to be. For example, the concept is everyone trusts each other at day one. The concept of building trust should not exist here, right? We are all doing this together, therefore not going to waste time being suspicious about each other. We're going to be really leaning towards exploring and learning from each other. It's a quite complex one, and with a bunch of scientists, as most of us are, because we're all normally very reserved in terms of jumping into an idea together, but that creates this foundation for innovation in the company. And then the other 3 on the top are something that we continuously challenge each other about. One is curiosity. And it's not curiosity for the sake of curiosity, but how can I use things that are not necessarily obvious to develop drugs to these patients? How can I learn from areas that are not mine, from my colleagues, from society, from everything else, and remain curious? The second one there on the top is ownership. We do not believe in line functions. We do not believe in silos at Praxis. We believe that we all bring great experience, great expertise, and we honor that as a company. and we care about using that. But we also believe that the magic happens when you own the entire thing, when you get from top to bottom, and every word can be said, and there is no problems like with each other in terms of an area that you cannot touch. And that's how we're going to develop faster and more drugs. But quite importantly as well, this all can create like a very nice environment of creation and new drugs. But if the results never happen, it becomes meaningless. So on top of all of that is really driving everyday results. And I'm incredibly proud of the execution of the team, Praxis, and we really care about bringing these drugs to the patients. And that's what the ultimate results is here to illustrate. So next one, please. So just going to finish very quickly on the pipeline. At this point in time, obviously we're going to be talking about 8A today and Praxis 562, but we have the largest pipeline of drugs in development for epilepsies of genetic origin. We have the ones here in the charts right now, so 562, 222, our KCNT1 candidates, but we also have 3 other programs in partnership with the Florida Institute in Australia. And together, this is the largest program, like a portfolio in epilepsy. And why is that relevant? Because there are more similarities, just like there's more similarities amongst us humans than we sometimes want to see. There are more similarities about this disease that can allow us to develop each one of them faster. So we see this not an economy of scale necessarily, but actually an ability to scale by watching all this disease being a key differentiator on how we can develop these drugs. And the difference between having some ASOs or oligonucleotides and some small molecules here is quite important as well, because we can learn from each one of them and see what is best for that given disease, for that given condition. And in the case of 8A, we're pretty certain that 562 would add to that and hopefully meaningfully for the patient's life. So that's the message like on this one. Next one, please. All right, so I'm going to hand over, I believe, I actually don't know to whom. So Bernard, is that you?
Yeah, thanks, Marcia. Yeah, I'll take it from here. We can go to the next slide. I just want to share a couple of slides with you to explain what we're trying to do with Praxis 562, how it works, and where we are in development. I just want to start off by reminding everybody that I'm going to refer to it as sometimes as a drug or a treatment, but it's an experimental intervention. We're in clinical trials in the early stages, and we're learning how to use it. We don't know that it works yet, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to show that at some point. But again, this is real learning, and it's an experimental intervention, and the results have yet to be seen. With that, let me tell you why we're excited about Praxis 562 and excited about the potential. So Praxis 562 works differently on sodium channels than any existing drugs out there. Ones that you know about, like phenytoin or carbamazepine, those all work in a way of blocking the sodium channels. Very kind of bluntly, they block the sodium channels at the peak when they're trying to let sodium ions in and drive normal nerve function. And that's why those drugs have a lot of side effects. And 562 is designed to work very differently. It's designed to work on a specific part of sodium channels called persistent current, and gain of functions in SCN8A and 2A cause increases in persistent current, which is just a part of the sodium current that those channels do. And when that happens, the neurons are very excitable, reactive, and cause seizures. Praxis 562 works very potently on that part of the sodium current and doesn't block all of it. So we believe that that should allow it to have beneficial effects on seizures and normalize that sodium channel function without blocking normal function. It should hopefully be well tolerated. So that's the idea for Prax 562. It was based on the genetics of SCN8A and SCN2A. And so with that, we have nice data in preclinical models, genetic models of 8A and 2A. And we've done safety testing in animals over a short period of time that has allowed us to get into phase 1 studies in humans, the initial safety testing in humans. You can go to the next slide. So that's where we are right now. You can advance, Deborah. We're studying it in phase 1 trials. And the focus of phase 1 studies, we always start in adults, or at least for the most part, start in adults if that's a relevant thing to do, and then work our way down to studying it in children. It's easy to look at this as just kind of a hoop you have to jump through or a check the box. But really, these phase 1 studies, we learn a lot. We learn about how to get the appropriate levels of drug in the body. We learn about what the drug does to metabolize and clear, what the body does to metabolize and clear the drug out of the system. And all that together tells us how to use it and what sorts of safety or side effects we might run into, what kind of interactions there might be with other drugs. So it's anything but a check the box. It's really an important way to learn in adults what happens with this drug, and then it allows us to move forward carefully and in a thoughtful way into children. We interact with regulators and the FDA in order to proceed into later studies and proceed into children. So with that, I'll turn it over to Billy to talk about the regulatory interactions.
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. Next slide, please. So as Bernard mentioned, we have begun interacting with the regulators about the progress that we've been making with 562. We recently received a rare pediatric disease designation for SCN8A for 562. These early interactions demonstrate that Praxis is serious about developing a therapy for the disease, and allows for early evaluation of the non-clinical data and the clinical data that Bernard just described. This is critical for understanding if our rationale for investigating this disease is sound. These early interactions are key to getting a good idea of whether the regulators agree with our strategies. Right now, we're actively working with FDA to answer questions around potential orphan drug designation. And once we have more information around that designation, we'll share that with the community. You can go to the next slide. Great. The process to discover and bring a drug to patients is long, and there's many potential treatments never make it beyond an idea. After a target's identified, and as Bernard described, there are animal studies and there are early clinical work that ensures the drug is safe and there's a potential for benefit. The first discovery and verification work can take a long time, and it has a high rate of failure. And along the way, we have key interactions with the regulatory bodies. As I just mentioned, we're actively talking about an orphan designation. And these designations confirm that the strategy is appropriate. This development process is further complicated in rare diseases. There are very few patients available to participate in a trial, and that means that sponsors have to have a good plan in place for the entire clinical development program before even really initiating a clinical study. We're also cognizant of the fact that these are serious, life-threatening diseases and frequently don't have a current treatment option. So we try to do this as efficiently as possible. We develop novel trial designs and we present them to the FDA, but ultimately the regulators have to agree with our plan. And this factors into the natural history of the disease is often not well understood, and patients can present with different phenotypes. And that's why these types of interactions with you folks are so important to engage in, because it helps us to understand the disease and how to specifically design trials with needs in mind. It's vital to get it right from the start in rare diseases. And again, we're just very happy to be here to speak with you all. Next slide, please. I think it's Michael.
Thanks, Billy. Can Casey, I know that you and Hillary already mentioned, but just want to state again how excited we are about the Citizen platform and initiative launching tomorrow. One of the questions is and has been kind of around what benefits there are with this type of an initiative. And so, Hillary, if it's okay, I thought I might actually go ahead and address that. And on the next slide, try to hit a few of those high points about how Citizen is, and that particular process will really benefit research and help accelerate treatments for the SCN8A community. Beyond the direct benefits in terms of having immediate digital access to medical records, we really hope and see this process as having major benefit for the research that we're doing with and for you. So helping us understand the different subpopulations within 8A, looking at what kinds of assessments are done in clinical visits to see if that's at all applicable to ways that we could build studies. And it can help us and will help us with biomarker development. And then also it really will, we hope and foresee, understand what the current standards are, where there may be gaps, where things work, where they don't work, because that also is really helpful information as we work with you in the community and design the studies. And then really, the last, bottom right point there, we hope that this does create a even larger and more robust and community. So helping you as families, even clinicians, also better understand SCN8A, because really without understanding, it's hard to move forward. So that really is a necessary, foundation. Hillary, I'll pass it back over to you or Deborah. I'm not sure who.
That's the end of the slides?
Correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. So Shelley, if you don't mind pulling those slides, that would be great. Thank you so much, Shelley. Okay, well, thank you guys for that great presentation and giving us kind of the lay of the land, both from a Praxis perspective as well as from a where we are with the program and where we're going with Citizen and all of that. And I appreciate, Marcio, you've been already answering questions in the chat, which is great. So guys, keep them coming. But I think we have a number of questions that we've already gathered from the community, so we can kind of dive into some of those. You covered parts of this in the talk, so I think we can move through parts of it quickly, but I want to be sure that the questions are directly answered as much as possible. So the questions we were going to start with had to do with Citizen. So I think, Michael, if we could dive into that a little bit. I think the families, from what we can tell at this point, are pretty excited about the ability to have this tremendous service to put to use on a day-to-day basis for their kids. I guess what would be really helpful for them to understand is how that data connects to getting a drug to our kids. What does that look like? How does that help you do it? And can other drug companies use that data as well?
Sure. Yeah, I can start off and then others, please chime in. So Citizen is a really, I think, awesome company in that they have, like you said, the ability to set up this platform where as individuals, we have access to our medical records if you sign up. Then the kind of second part of their initiatives are what's called data extraction. And so really pulling out in a systematic way key aspects of those records in an anonymized fashion, and hitting on different elements of care that's provided, symptoms, types of testing that's been done. And so the way that we see that helping, and to your question in terms of, you know, moving from here to the point in time to have a treatment, is, you know, disorders like SCN8A are still, you know, relatively new in the sense of understanding all of the different complexities of the disorder. And so through this process, we hope to learn exponentially more beyond just seizures, for example, but understand that there may be issues with respect to the gut and digestion, or drooling, or a motor function, vision, you know, any body system, because we want to build that into what we are evaluating to see if what we can learn about that. So that's certainly one piece. Now, all of that being said, seizures are also of great importance, obviously. And so one thing we hope to look at specifically with seizures and epilepsy are trends over time, impact of certain drugs that may exist, things like that. And so we really hope to learn and be informed so that we can then design studies and bring treatments forward that fulfill those needs.
Michael, maybe if I can add there something as well, because I'll try to tie back to some questions that were being asked, Hillary, if that's okay. Normally, how do you do a natural history study, right? Especially in a disease that is so recent, I would say, as its identification as it is SCN8A. You got a bunch of people that know a little bit more about the disease, and then they say, these are the things you should follow. Arguably, no one really knows. We're just better informed guesses than the people that never seen it. But it's been like that for many years, right? For all of us that participate in many of those. And it's a frustrating exercise because things get dropped, things get added, you didn't follow, you can find the record, so on and so forth. The other part that is incredibly relevant for this platform, and which enticed us to some extent to be so passionate about this, is we first looking into the disease from a cohort, and then we were deciding. So instead of making really following a more adaptive process than asking a question that you don't know if it's relevant, now we're asking questions that we know are relevant because they're being observed. So I wanted to make that distinction. The second one, there was a question about drug-drug interaction. And Bernard touched a little bit on that, right? So GDI, as we call, are incredibly important parts of drug development. There are regulations around it, there are ways to conduct, there are standalone trials, but they're standard. They're never really tailored to some extent to the needs of a patient population, right? That you kind of use the most commons, you assess the most commons depending on CYP inhibition or not. But by actually going and looking to the patient records, we know which drugs they actually are using. So we can have a much more productive dialogue, or Billy can have a much more productive dialogue with the FDA saying, those are the most relevant ones. This is what we see. This is how we're going to test. And that accelerates drug development as well. So there are multiple ways this can be used. And again, we feel it's an experiment, as almost everything else in life. We're obviously very excited about it. And the benefit for everyone here is probably obvious as well. Going to have a full collection of your records at your fingertip.
Yeah, just to emphasize kind of the obvious point here, it's just such a great use. One of the things I love about Citizen Platform is it uses already collected data, existing data that people have put the time and effort into already, and then it maximizes, kind of the knowledge we can get out of that. And then if we need to have a more focused prospective study, we can do that, but instead of adding a new registry or adding a new study for people to participate in, people have already done the work here. They've received the medical care, the records exist. So that's just a beautiful, like, get to it, learn, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
And I do want to flag for the families just that this is reflective, what Marcio just talked about with respect to, and Michael, with respect to looking at sort of the disease more broadly, is something that, I have to say, and I want to give kudos to Praxis for this has been an ongoing conversation. Bernard, I think, since you guys were 5 people, we've been having conversations about looking at this disorder as not just a seizure disorder. And I know that is, I don't know if the families fully understand what a giant lift it is to do that, but it's an entirely necessary one. And it's one that this team has day in and day out been responsive to. And I just want to flag that for you guys, because that's some of the behind the scenes stuff. And I also want to just mention for the families, again, our families are so thoughtful and kind that they don't want to take spots from other people in the platform. And I just want to remind all of you that, what everyone is highlighting is that we need to have a very broad picture of what this disorder is like. So if you have a mild phenotype, please don't say you're going to leave it for someone with a more severe phenotype. If you have a more severe phenotype, please don't say that you're going to leave it for someone who might, has a young child, or, just sign up. We'll make them get us more spots if we need them. We need. Oh, and that actually is a great question. Why are we limiting to 50?
Yeah, so
maybe there's like 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah. Can hit a couple of those. Real quickly, in terms of any negative aspects or downsides, just a couple things that may be of concern but have been mitigated. This is a highly secure site and company in terms of data privacy. So they meet all federal and even global standards in terms of making sure data are private, that there's no violation. And in fact, one of the founders of Citizen used to work at Health and Human Services and was one of the authors of the HIPAA and data privacy language. So that is a really big deal to them, and they understand how important it is. So in terms of a negative, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe the one thing, and this I couldn't spin as a positive, is that you may learn something that you didn't know, or that is in the records that you didn't know about, that may either be right or wrong. And so if it's inaccurate, this could be an opportunity to correct that and not perpetuate something that's inaccurate. There was one other quick question under that. Let me scroll up real fast. Oh, physicians on board. Yeah, absolutely. So we've had several conversations, letting, key providers in the country know about Citizen. Part of it is that, given that they're at academic institutions and are bound by certain rules in terms of IRBs and things like that, they can't necessarily directly, advertise, if you will, but they are definitely highly supportive. And anytime we have calls with them or demos, they think this is a really awesome opportunity.
Michael, let me address the question that is there about the types of records as well. So it's all you're going to need to do if you decide to join is basically consent and enter the data for where your kids was seeing, or your nothing else. All the uploads and the treatment of the data is done by Citizen. So they're going to get this data. They're going to get the records. Either they are EEG raw files, or their imaging files. And through a process of reading through a machine learning and looking to these codes, they're going to populate a database. So that's another thing that's super useful for us, since I know you are interested to hear what's there for us on this, because you're going to get this thousands of records tabulated in a way that's very useful in the system. So again, we're incredibly excited about this, as you can see.
So I think we're seeing some, and I just want to flag for the families, we are going to have a conversation with Citizen next week, this same time slot, and we are launching the campaign tomorrow, and all of our volunteer staff will be on hand to help with that process tomorrow. While we have you guys on the line, and I want to be mindful, Marcio has a hard stop at 1. I don't know if the rest of you have to hop off at exactly 1, but I do want to make sure that we talk about specifically also about the 562 trial. We have a lot of questions from the families about, I mean, first of all, when does this start? What are the inclusion exclusion criteria? How will my child be a candidate? What's the age group? And all of that good stuff. So I think it would be really important to cover that ground. I think while Marcio is still able to be here also.
Let me cover the timelines, because there are a couple of questions about the timelines, and then I'll let Michael and Bernard cover a little bit on the trial. So there was a question, why in adults if the population is mostly in kids? So the beauty and unfortunate issues with drug development is, unless you cannot dose adults, you have to start with adults. It's not the other way around. Like in the case of an ASO, for example, you start in kids if the kids are because you cannot treat adults. That would be like a necessary harm. So we have to start there. We always start by understanding the metabolism and other properties and the safety before going to kids. Those regulations are meant so kids don't get harmed through the process. That's kind of as simple as that. So we're finalizing that phase. Basically, to go a little bit more in detail than we went before, right? We first give 1 dose in a day. That's what's called a single dose study. And then you ascend the dose. You go to a different dose cohorts on that. And then once you're done with that phase, you can do multiple dose. You don't do multiple dose for acute drugs because there's no point. But in this case, we expect to dose for a long period of time. So we finish the single ascending. We finish a good part of the multiple ascending, but not entirely yet. And you want to understand how the foods, meaning whether or not you took with or without food, affects as well the drug. So that's the last parts of this phase 1. So that's the kind of 3 components. What is nice about it, since you asked for some results, is we know the exposures in the animal models, and exposure meaning how much drug circulating in your body would lead to the expected effects is required. And based on that, we expect to be at therapeutic levels right now. There was a question early on about safety. So I'll hand over to Bernard and Michael to talk a little bit about what we've seen, what we would expect to see, and how we expect to move forward there.
Yeah. So we'll take you a little bit more about the phase 1. And so Marcio laid out the why in adults, and then as he was saying, based on animal data, which is always just a projection, right? It's a prediction. We want to understand what's the safety in this case adults at the drug levels, the concentrations where we think it would work. So far, those phase 1 data are looking good. We haven't run into any safety problems. We've almost completed the dosing, and importantly we haven't seen what you expect to see for sodium channel blocker drugs, right? The whole premise here is that this should be better tolerated because it works in a very specific way, a persistent current, and doesn't block all of the sodium channel. So we haven't seen kind of the dizziness, sedation, unsteadiness, or ataxia. And so that's great, right? Small numbers of people, early days, but that's terrific. Now, what we understand from here is the levels that occur with any given dose, the concentrations. And then as we finish this up, as Marcio was saying, we will start to model and predict what kind of doses we need in children. And we'll also get toxicology data, so animal data in juvenile animals that make sure there are no other risks to children receiving the drug. that whole package together towards the end of the year will then allow us next year to be dosing in children with 8A mutations. And I'll turn it over to Michael. There's a lot of work to be done, right? We've got several months ahead of us, a lot of work to be done, but so we're not going to talk about specifics of the trial because that trial hasn't been designed yet, but we can tell you how we're thinking about it and how we're approaching it to be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. So just a couple of quick additional points. As Bernard said, the study, design, if you will, we're still thinking through. There's nothing finalized yet. Things like ages and what if I have another mutation besides 8A, and all of these are questions that we'll be grappling with and talking with FDA about and things like that. Similarly, along the lines of if I'm on Tegretol, do I have to come off to take this drug? We know is a really important issue, and our our goal and focus is on safety first. So we will work through that carefully and design things in a way that we don't harm individuals or ask for something that's too risky or overly risky to do. So those are all the things that, in parallel to what Bernard was mentioning, will be happening at the same time.
And I think it would be actually really helpful to shift, Billy, talk a bit about the regulatory piece and the difference between the rare pediatric disease designation and the orphan drug designation. Our families have done some really, and again, I want to let you guys know about this and pat our families on the back for having done some really tremendous outreach to FDA in November and December, telling their stories of their experiences, essentially making the argument to FDA that our kids are not safe at baseline. And if FDA is to keep our children safe, they need to move quickly and intelligently. So our families are not, it's not a black box totally for them. And we were able to have some very interesting conversations with FDA as a result of that outreach. And so I think it would be helpful, though, for them to have a bit better of a view on these designations and how that helps you guys do your job and how they can help further.
Yeah, no problem. So both of the designations come with a few benefits for Praxis, but not until a drug is approved. So they come with certain things, that tax breaks and things like that, that will aid in the development of the program. But the biggest attribute to interacting with the FDA on these early models is that we get to understand if FDA agrees with our logic. In the case of orphan diseases, orphan drug designations, we present the actual non-clinical data and we say, look, this appears to be efficacious. Do you agree? And then that allows us to really hone in on the trial design moving forward and the translational models. So it really does show the agencies that we are serious about developing these drugs. So, you establish a relationship with the regulatory body early, and you continue to maintain it, and you work with them as a collaborator. And it's really vital to get these types of designations in place.
And Hillary, I just want to emphasize the kind of work you and the foundation are doing, talking with the agencies. That is just so helpful because nobody else can tell them what the community is willing to accept. What is adequate safety? What is a risk that is important or not important, and how to balance it with potential benefits. So just keep that dialogue going, please. It's extremely helpful.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and as we make our cases for these, for novel trial designs, it's, to what Bernard said, it is imperative that we not only understand, the experiences that are relevant, but that the FDA agrees with us, and that's coming from you guys, coming from from the caregivers and from the patients.
Yeah,
That's one of the reasons that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Marcio.
This, Hillary, I was going to say is a very clear evidence of all of that is the pediatric designation, like actually the law was supposed to sunset last year, and it did.
Yeah.
So, and very, I would say a very clear and blunt reminder that because no one advocated with their state senators, the U.S. Senate let it sunset. So that no longer exists. So we were given the designation. It's obviously valid, but no one else is going to be able to get that moving forward unless it gets reenacted. And when you get reenacted, it gets with different rules and different conditions. And the intent of the regulation was to accelerate drug development for pediatric conditions, which is still a big gap. So the intent was beautiful, very honorable, and clearly not complete. So things like that is important. The interaction between advocacy and drug developers, quite important.
Actually, that's a very much along the lines of what I was going to say. I didn't know those details, but I think one of the reasons that we have these meetings, and one of the reasons that I insist on them being this kind of a conversation that's just very open, is because I want our families to see that this is what we're doing. I have these conversations with Marcio. I have these conversations with Deborah, with Michael, with Bernard, and I'm sure with Billy going forward, and where we are talking about strategy that helps our community and helps Praxis get the work done. And that can look like outreach to FDA. It can also look like work we're doing right now with our survey series, where we're going to be looking into feeding tube use and how to formulate their drug in a way that works for us so that we aren't having to troubleshoot during a trial with something that's clogging our feeding tubes and things like that.
Yeah.
And that these are important conversations, and the things that you guys as families bring to me and to our team, we then bring to Praxis and have those conversations, and with our other partners as well. And then they bring their concerns to us. And so this is exactly what's happening behind closed doors.
Exactly.
And I want you guys to see it because it's impressive and it's exciting, and you guys are all an integral part of that as families. With that, Marcio, I know you need to hop off.
Yeah.
I don't want to
steal Bernard from you as well, Hillary, and from the community.
Okay, that's fine.
We're both in this meeting. I can't thank you all enough for the invitation and for having us here today. And we're going to continue to work very hard to get this drug to all the patients. So stay well.
Thank you so much.
Peace as well. So talk to you also.
Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Right. And I don't know if Billy and Michael and Deborah, I want to be mindful of your time as well. I don't know if there was anything that you guys wanted to add to the discussion, or if you want to stay on a little longer, or, take your lead.
The only thing, if you don't mind, that I wanted to do is just echo what you beautifully said, and reinforce that every single family member who is on this call today, and everyone that you know in the community, is important. This is not a Praxis alone initiative. It is really a combined community effort, and we are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with you so that we can hopefully make progress together. And as Hillary said, you have expertise in ways that we will never have in the clinic. So it is imperative for us to be listening to you and really incorporate what you bring to the table in terms of expertise and personal experience. And variability in that experience is very valid. So one person's experience is no less valuable in understanding this overall complex 8A community. So just as you were talking about with Citizen, don't hold back. Don't hold back from signing up. Don't hold back from sharing your experiences. Don't hold back from voicing who you are and what your child is going through, because we're ready to listen. We're really eager to learn. And we value everything that you've given to us so far, which has been tremendous, but so much more to come as we begin to really unpack what all of it means. And so I just wanted to tell you again, thank you so much for being part of the journey so far, but it is just the beginning. And we're we're really excited to keep going with you. And so we will work very closely with Hillary still, with the community still, because this is, again, a journey that we want to take together and that we're completely committed to taking with you.
You, Deborah. That's
I see
very.
I see that there are a lot of questions about locations, about the trial.
Yeah.
So let me just touch on that. Yeah. So we're actively engaging with regulatory bodies in Europe and in the United States. We're considering locations now. We really do need to understand where patients are, and just from a logistical standpoint, to get people to these sites. So we haven't selected sites. We are considering all options at this point, and we are actively engaging in a global strategy.
Well, I guess I'll make the offer. Normally, we probably would have had a call somewhat soon to get to know each other, but I'll make the offer now, which is that we actually have all of our patients mapped. We can help
Perfect.
you with that process, and so maybe we should have some conversations offline about what that can look like and how we can manage that data for you in a way that helps you locate the trials in the smartest places possible. And our families have given a ton of feedback on that and have been, again, just tremendous. And they're such an engaged group. I can't say enough about them. And I'm wondering if what we should do strategically, since we have some questions we didn't get to, everything is preserved in the chat. And then we have some questions that were preset that we didn't get to. I'm wondering, Deborah, if we can share those back with you guys and get a full set of answers, so that, because our families are going to start having to hop off, and
Absolutely.
I imagine you guys have work to do. I don't know.
Yes, and that was something that I left out of what I said just a moment ago, which is, to the point around, this is just the beginning, or perhaps this is the beginning of a new phase, because it's not as if we haven't been doing all this work before, but rather this is the dawn of the new era of working together. This is just one of many discussions that we hope to have with the community. So please know, just as Hillary mentioned, we'll take those questions back, see how we can answer them, but these are also springboards for continued conversations so that we know what's really important to you, and make sure that as we think of new ways to engage, what is the information that's really top of mind for you that we need to make sure that we're closing the loop on as we have those answers. So please let us know what the questions are that we didn't get to today. We'll certainly address those, and then we'll make sure to keep you abreast of any new engagement opportunities so that we can make sure to keep you informed along the way. Because again, we want to be a good partner, and we realize that it's not just about pulling information from you, but it's also sharing information with you. We're all in this together, and so that's our commitment, is to make sure that you are informed.
And we do have you guys scheduled for another call to close out this series. So I think what'll be great about that call is that we can, we will know you guys, and we can sort of jump from this point. I do want to be sure that I remind our families that we are launching. If you didn't hear it, the 3 times I said it, we are launching the Citizen Campaign tomorrow. There are only 50 spots open currently. And I, as Casey said, if I were you, I would just pull out the list of your institutions and providers, genetics report, driver's license, child's birth certificate, have it ready to roll tomorrow. We will hopefully, with our call in a week with Citizen, be talking through the benefits and using the dashboard, because we will have all of those slots filled. If not, we will be helping sign people up live as well on that. I do want to thank you guys for showing up so openly and ready to meaningfully engage with our community. Praxis has a very strong history of engaging with our community, and it's something we take to heart, and we take very seriously and are grateful for. And I see you're asking about the information. We will be posting links live first thing in the morning tomorrow to sign up. And there are actually a few that are already posted in the support group that will go live tomorrow. I want to thank Casey for hosting, as always, and Shelly for stepping in for tech support today. And then I just want to again thank our community members for coming to this space, with your questions, your ideas, your insights, your requests, and insisting on, being heard in that chat. I love it. I just love it. It makes me so happy. This is how the work for our community happens. And we can't do it without you showing up. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for your time today. And please thank Bernard and Marcio again from us. And we will see you in a couple of weeks.
You will. And it's been our pleasure. So thanks for having us, Hillary.